What's going on, beautiful people? You are tuned in to the Sex Mechanic podcast, and I am your host, the Sex Mechanic, aka Jeanson Benoit, aka Mr. Born to Explore, aka Confident Creator, aka The Exception, aka I Did It My Way. And you're tuned in for episode number 30. I was scheduled to start at 5 Pacific time, but I decided to start a little early, so I'll give people time to come in case, people weren't prepared. I am on a different night as or a night than usual as well. I'm doing a broadcast on a Friday night, which is not normal for me because I usually work, which I'm still working tonight too, but um that's another reason why I started a little early, just so if the conversation goes a little longer, we've got enough of a buffer for me to go to work and do some other stuff as well. But yeah, I'll let people kind of come in. I won't start immediately into the conversation, but welcome to the Sex Mechanic Podcast, episode number 30. And today is going to be a really deep dive into just emotions and feelings and coping with loss, um, dealing with breakups, and maybe we could work some stuff out together. So I'll let people come in as they come in, but I'll get started. So for my appreciation, let me get rid of this banner real quick. For my appreciation, just in case this person ever sees it, um, I want to say that I appreciate the young woman in New York that I was talking to. I say was because we're no longer talking at this point. Not like that, we're no longer romantically talking. We decided to part ways in our endeavor uh, to build something together. But I want to say I appreciate her because I think we both came into each other's lives at a time where we both needed and desired something in particular coming out of our respective situations. And I think we both did a really good job of providing that for each other or helping each other kind of through that process. We created a space that was open, that was honest, that was transparent, and it really allowed for both of us to just kind of be straight up with each other as much as possible. And I think we both did a really good job of that. We both were definitely straight up. We both had uncomfortable conversations with each other about different things, and but it never felt too uncomfortable to talk about. You know, even though going into it, we might have felt like I really don't want to bring this up, or I really don't want to, ask or talk about this. But once we started talking, I feel like we would always realize that um, I had nothing to fear. Like there was nothing to fear at all. We both created that space where speaking our truths and also telling each other things that maybe have happened with ourselves and other people. We created a space where that was okay to do, and we could work it out based on how we talked about it and what it was that happened. So I really appreciate that. I also appreciate the fact that we had a lot of care and a lot of nurturing, a lot of love. Uh, Obviously, not like love, like oh, in love, but a lot of the a lot of love and care when dealing with each other. And I think that's also something both of us needed, and both of us appreciated as well. So whenever or if she ever sees this, I just want you to know that I'm really thankful and appreciative to have come across you when I did, and also I'm glad that I was able to be a part of your life, even though it was only for what, just over a year. But in that over a year span, I do feel like we both left each other with something that we could move forward with, and we could take on to whatever situations we get into next. So I appreciate you fully. And, this is not the end. This is the end of that chapter for us. But I do feel like being that we created that particular space for each other, I could see in the future sometime us building on that and becoming friends. So that's a positive thing to take out of that. It's something that I look forward to. So thank you. And the care will always be there. The yeah, you already know it's all love over here. So all right. So with that being said, we're talking about breakups. Obviously I'm very, very fresh off of, this situation with the person that I just talked about. This literally happened last night when we decided, all right, we're gonna go separate ways because we match in a lot of ways, but then there's a couple of things. One in particular, which is my desire to explore non-monogamy that she doesn't really see for herself, and she doesn't really have the same interest in. And I gotta respect it. Like she said that from jump, and it did not change, which is okay as well. Um, and I at one point was basically just gauging to see if maybe it wasn't that important for me as well. And in that process, I found out over time that that was something that I still wanted to explore. So that's how we got to where we got. But in the process, we we had a lot of really good times along the way. But so we're talking about dealing with breakups and coping with it and how to, what are the methods and stuff that people maybe use to deal with it. So I find that one of the hardest things when like separating from somebody or just, when people go their separate ways is the factor of missing either that person or missing things about that person or about the relationship. For example, you might miss the way this person used to touch you. You might miss the way this person used to laugh, or the way they used to say something in particular that was very specific to them. There's a lot of things that you can miss. And then also there's things that you can miss, like the person's cooking, or there's a lot of things. And to me, that's probably the hardest part of dealing with the loss of a relationship or the loss of a lover is, those things are out the window now. It's kind of like you don't get those anymore with that person. Of course, you might be able to find that with somebody else, but at the time, it feels like there's no way that you can replace what it was that was there before. There's no way that you can regain those same experiences with somebody else. It really feels like this was kind of like a very exclusive situation, and maybe a one-time situation that won't come by again. And that may be true, but what we have to remember is you may be in love multiple times in your life. You may not fall in love once only. And if that does happen, that doesn't mean that you love everybody the same way. Everybody kind of brings their own things to the table, and each relationship should be looked at and it's for whatever it is, based on the individuals involved. So the missing part is really tough, and especially in the beginning, like I'm a day in, and my biggest thing today, for example, was not having contact with her, because we would, contact each other daily, either through text or some other means. And not being able to do that, and knowing also tonight, there's not going to be the good night text, with the kisses and all that stuff. That's going to be tough. At the same time, um, there was a little something in the air. I was trying to flick it away. At the same time, that's going to pass at some point. That'll pass. And at some point, you'll get back to a space where you don't need that, I guess. Because over time, you can become dependent on those type of interactions because you've had it for however long you've had it. But that's going to pass. So just keep that in mind. I'm reminding myself of that as well, that those things will pass. Another thing is another thing that can be hard about losing a lover, or I don't like to say losing because there's losing a person in the physical sense, which is, a person passing on and transitioning after physical death. So I don't want to really compare that or even put that in the same category as uh, parting ways with someone. Because at the end of the day, if you part ways with somebody, if egos are not too much involved and if things were not left on a bad note, you can always, or unless the person, or if the person didn't change their number or something, you can always reach out and say, hey, how are you doing? And find out how that person's doing and get into a conversation. But when somebody passes on physically, it's a little bit more difficult to keep the communication, obviously, because their physical body's not there. So I don't want to put them in the same category. I'll say parting ways from somebody. Oh, by the way, I want to mention this about that. I I was just thinking about this earlier. It's like when you're dating or when you're with somebody or when you're, in a relationship, I realize now, not now, but I realize that it's almost like gambling in a sense. Like you're only able, or you should only gamble as much as you're willing or comfortable with losing. So I brought up the fact that, I still want to explore non-monogamy with somebody, but I want to do it in a very in a space that's trusting. I want to do it in a space with somebody that I really care about and that I have very strong emotions and ties to. I don't want it to just be done with a casual person. So, with that being said, I can't get mad at her, for example, for not wanting to compromise on that because the risk might be more than she's willing or comfortable uh, with gambling with. It might just be too great. And no other person can decide what what price is too much for someone else, to gamble with. So with that, I kind of have to respect that. And hopefully if somebody else is ever in that situation where you feel like somebody should bend or you feel like they should compromise more on whatever it is they believe or whatever it is they feel, you just got to respect where they're coming from. You might be able to afford gambling this or that, but that person might not have that emotional equity to gamble the same thing. So just, try to keep that in mind as you move forward and you just remember that it's people are coming from different places, so you got to respect that. But not only that, there's the aspect of oh yeah, I gotta forgive me by the way. Like I'm literally still processing. It's only been 24 hours, not even 24 hours. So I'm still processing everything. And I've done a pretty good job up to this point, but it's still an ongoing process. So work with me. Usually I have things written down and I have like notes and stuff. But today I'm just, I'm just coping and dealing with it live with y'all. So we're doing it together in a sense. And so there might be moments where I just have to kind of collect my thoughts and get my words together. But I think so I talked about missing somebody. I talked about also, oh, what I was going to talk about was sometimes another hard part along with missing somebody and missing parts of the relationship is when you don't get closure. When you don't get closure, that can make things kind of tough too, because it's kind of like you leave the situation on an open note, and maybe there are questions that aren't answered. Maybe there are things that did not get resolved before it ended. Um, yeah, so not getting closure can really affect how you recover, how you grieve, how you deal with not having that person around anymore. Not getting closure actually makes a big deal because that might leave you with more questions than answers. And when you're trying to recover and you're trying to make sense of it all, it can be more confusing if you have a bunch of questions and not as many answers for those questions. And then you can also, I don't know if you're anything like me, who is a very analytical type of thinker about stuff, especially when it comes to relationships and people, you might find yourself overthinking a lot of these questions that you have. And then now you're starting to come up with your own answers that you're not getting verification or confirmation on. So, you're creating these stories, and usually we have a tendency to create stories on more of the negative side of things. So, you're probably going to create a story that is not the best depiction of the person that you're creating the story about. And now you're putting yourself in a space where you're just struggling even more to recover and struggling even more to uh to deal with the loss and to deal with the grief. So, um, yeah, if you can get closure, that's good. But if you can't, also, you got to be okay with that. Like, you have to be able to say, hey, there's some questions that I wanted to ask that I didn't get to ask yesterday in our conversation. But I also realized too that they probably wouldn't have made a difference. Like, me getting those answers was more of me getting those answers for my ego, but not for me personally. Because personally, I've accepted the fact that, we just weren't the match that, we needed to be at this time. And that happens sometimes. And that's all right. That's totally okay. But I am interested to hear how others deal with breakups, and what are some of your methods of moving past breakups when they happen, or separating from a lover. I will say this in the meantime. I will say that this situation is going to be easier to deal with, because even though it happened at a time where I thought uh, maybe the situation would be able to move into a, a further place, I thought maybe I had a solution for, us kind of being on a different page when it came to the whole monogamy, non monogamy issue. Um, Even though that kind of flipped and turned into something else, I think recovering from this is going to be easier for me personally. I can't speak for her, obviously, but for me, I think it's going to be easier because I'm not dealing with the same type of guilt that I've dealt with in the past, in past situations where I felt like I was the only one who didn't think it was a fit, but the other person might have thought it was a fit and didn't understand why I didn't want to move forward. So that guilt was very heavy. I mean, it was a weight on my shoulders during those times. And so I don't have the guilt factor because I think, again, both of us did a really good job this time of creating a space of just, transparency. So we would check in. Like, for example, when we would see each other on trips, either her visiting me or me visiting her, we would usually do like a post trip, check in conversation where we talk about how the trip was to each of us, and talk about maybe some of the things that we would have wanted to see different, or maybe some issues that we had that we didn't bring up at the time and we brought up at that time. So I liked that. That was good because checking in is important. Sometimes we have an idea about how things are. And then you know, after you meet up or after you go see somebody for a few days, some stuff happens. And it's important to check in and talk about that and find out if, there's things that could have went differently and maybe ways that it could have been communicated different. And so that's what I appreciated was that in those post trip conversations, we would usually find out that we could communicate better. Like there was definitely some gaps in communication with us, but the way we got better at it was by talking about where those gaps were and realizing, oh shit, okay, so we both wanted the same thing. We just didn't express that clearly. And so now we'll do a better job of expressing it next time. So that was a good thing to have. But all in all though, this is I'll say this too. I think what brings me comfort in this situation, if anything, is the fact that I do see the possibility of us being able to communicate in the future. I don't think it's going to be, and also we have people in common, you know, like, I'm still cool with her sister. I'll be seeing her sister again. So it's not like, um, we're going to be in a situation where we never see each other ever again type of thing. So I find some level of comfort in knowing that not only am I going to see her again, but at some point, I think we'll be able to, you know, see past, see each other as something different than what we were. We can see each other as friends, and whatever else that's non-romantic. At some point. I don't think that's now. It's kind of early, but I think that will happen at some point, and I look forward to that. And that kind of brings me some level of peace, knowing that that is on the way. But yeah, yeah, I feel like this is important though to do, to talk about this on the podcast platform, because this podcast is really about dealing with not only emotions but dealing with relationships, dating, situationships. And the more honest and transparent I can be with everyone in the audience and everybody who watches and listens on Spotify and wherever you listen to this podcast, the better the experience will be for you. Because a lot of times people are experiencing very similar things and don't realize it. And so me talking about my current experience of separation from a lover, chances are a lot of people can relate to that. I know I'm not the only one who's broken up or had a breakup happen, like, so hopefully this kind of provides some level of comfort, relatability. Maybe you can get something out of it that helps you in your process of coping. If you're currently coping with separation from a lover as well, or a breakup, I think that's important though. Like that's what this podcast is about. So we have our fun and we have our moments of laughter and stuff like that too. But I think it's important to definitely allow people to feel things from this podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment on the video if you watch it. And also, don't forget the road to 1,000 subscribers begins now. Hit that subscribe button if you enjoy these conversations. Oh, I got other news too. Um, I just put my 2 week notice into my job the other day. What was that, yesterday? 2 days, 2 nights ago. It's something that I'd been planning for a while. Probably since I got back from from my leave of absence. I had been planning it. I just didn't know exactly when. Originally, it was going to be September, and then I said, "All right, October. All right, for sure, December." So now the final day is first week of January. Um, and it honestly it feels good because I know I'm doing it based off of the fact that I am trying to become a multiple stream earner, and so I don't want to depend only on a job, one job or something like that. And in all honesty, I prefer to build the Sex Mechanic brand and have my own situation in my own business versus working for a company. So I think that begins with me customizing my life, which is what the Sex Mechanic brand is all about. It's all about customization, customizing your relationships, customizing your job situation, customizing your family life, just customizing it to whatever it is that you prefer in your life and what you need to fit your life. And I think the first step of that was to get rid of um, working the night shift, which really started to take a toll a few years ago. But I think after my leave of absence, it really just went to another level in terms of me not really being able to sleep well during the day and being being damn near a zombie during the week. So um getting rid of that is going to be a big deal. And also the rigidity of the schedules. I wasn't able to, well, I was able to travel, but I had to jump through hoops to travel. And at one point, they even said they wouldn't allow me to take the same measures in order to take days off as I had taken in the past. So it had become harder and harder to get days off for me to really enjoy life the way I wanted to. And so, yeah, make a change now. I have some things in the works. I have some apparel, some designs that I've been working on. I'll start wearing those shirts on the podcast really soon here. I have a few samples, and you'll see kind of what's been going on in my mind and what I've also been putting on. I don't want to say on paper, but digitally, I've been creating. And I've got some other things too that I'm putting together that will create some multiple streams for me. The podcast is another thing that recently has become monetizable on Anchor. So I'll be able to put some ads in and get some money off of that too. And at some point, make some partnerships with different companies that I believe in and brands that I feel like are worth my time and worth me advertising for. So yeah, that's that. It's crazy how for me the end of the year tends to be when a lot of change and not turmoil, but a lot of change happens. And that's whether I wanted to or not. But typically, at least for the last 4 years, 4 years, 2018, 2019, 2020. Yeah, the last 4 years, towards the end of the year, there's been a lot of major changes that happen. Either I'm moving or I'm moving on, from a situation or from yeah. So it's yeah, something about the end of the year is very, I don't know, it's very telling in terms of what my next year is going to be like, because a lot of movement and a lot of change happens, it seems like, and it really sets me up for whatever the next year is going to be like. So, and typically too, that's why for January or December 31st, I like to kind of reflect and kind of I don't take the whole night to reflect, but I take a little bit of that day or that night, or maybe even January 1st during the day, to kind of visualize what the year is going to look like to some degree. And I really think about what I want and my desires for the upcoming year. And that might be important for you all too, like at the end of the year or at the very beginning, to give yourself a chance to really set out some goals, maybe, or just at the very least, just envision what it is you want your year to look like, you know, even if you don't have any specific goals. Hmm. Sometimes sitting in the silence is important, and it's very helpful as well. I'm not really scared of the silence. I don't mind it at all. But yeah, this is what it is right now, though. Um, I was saying before, I kind of went off track, but I was saying how I do think this recovering from this situation is going to be a little easier because I won't be dealing with the guilt that I have in the past. But also, I made a comment uh, early, maybe a couple months ago, when I had brought up, when we had like another check-in session, me and the young lady I was recently talking to, um, and I brought up the fact, not to her, but I think I said when I was talking to somebody else, like I'm a lot more okay with things not moving forward because it's not a fit, in terms of what we're looking for, as opposed to things not moving forward because one person wanted something and the other person wasn't able to provide it, even though they were under the impression that we were both on the same page, because that's happened before. And I didn't need that to happen again either. Um, so I'm glad that it did not go that way. I'm glad that both of us were very clear. And this is something that everybody should keep in mind. When you when you're clear on what it is you desire and what it is you need or want out of a relationship, it makes you a lot more unwavering in um in what you ask for, I guess you could say. So meaning, if you know that you want this, for example, but this very specific thing within your relationship, then the idea of settling for something different or compromising that and making it something that it's not, or making it something that you don't necessarily want, isn't really appealing to you, or isn't as appealing to you because you're very clear on what it is you need. And I really respect that about her, especially, being a younger woman too. She's got a lot of maturity in terms of understanding what it is she's willing to take and what it is she's not willing to take. And of course, after some time, it's taking me, after some time, I'm 37. So I've got, I've had time to get to the point where I'm at now where uh, I'm less wavering than maybe I was in the past. And I have my own belief system too that kind of puts me in that position as well, where I really follow my intuition and my guidance system. And if it tells me that, um, yeah, I just follow it. Yeah, basically. So, which is why, I said, let me see if I could shed myself of this feeling of needing to explore non-monogamy. And when I saw that that wasn't really going anywhere, I can't go against that. My intuition hasn't led me astray yet. When I've listened to it, when it's been clear, when it's been, right in my face and I've listened to it, it's led me to all the great things that I have right now. It's the reason why I moved to San Francisco um, in 2017 with no job, with no place to live, with no friends, over there. Um, it's the reason why I applied for the company I work for right now. They weren't even on my radar. They were not even on my radar. And I was meditating one day, and the intuitive hit me, and I went for it. I didn't even get it at that time either. I ended up getting it months later, but um, many months later actually. So I think I had that vision, or whatever you could call it, that hit back in like February, March of that year. And it wasn't until October that I actually got the job with the company. But it was the company. So yeah, but my intuition has led me to so many great things, and I would be I wouldn't say I'd be a fool for going in the other direction, but you got to listen to your gut. You got to follow your gut. Even when your mind and your body and everything else is telling you something different, other people, you got to follow your gut, because nobody else knows what your gut is telling you. Only you can feel that. Only you are connected to that enough to make decisions based off of that. A lot of people will give you suggestions and recommendations based on logic, based on their experiences, maybe even based on your own past experiences. But even that isn't the same as guidance from your inner self or your inner being. So definitely follow follow your gut in these type of situations and any other kind of situations, when you have any big decisions, when you have things that you're trying to figure out. Follow the gut, because that will not lead you in the wrong direction, even when it seems like this shit doesn't really make sense to go this way. But just follow it. And before you even follow it, make sure that you build a strong relationship with your inner self, so you can tell the difference between your inner being and your ego, for example. Because your ego is also working very hard to try to get your attention and to try to convince you that you and it are one and the same. And you have to work diligently to stay aware of where your emotions are coming from and where different thoughts and feelings are coming from. You got to keep a track of that, because if you kind of like, if you relax too much in terms of your self awareness, you might end up becoming or thinking that you're your ego, and that will make you do things a lot differently than if you can tell the difference, if you can distinguish between your ego and your and who you really are. So definitely stay on top of that and build a relationship with your inner self, so you can make decisions based on that and not based off of, maybe lust or what you want to happen. Because I think I mentioned this in a past episode, but sometimes sometimes we want situations, right? More than anything else. And so whoever is in our lives during that moment, we're going to try to fit them into that situation no matter what, even if they don't fit that situation. And so you become so focused on getting to this goal of whatever it is you want. Let's say you want a family of 3 children, right? But maybe the person you're with doesn't want any children. But because you want that so badly, you feel like you are going to stick it out. You're going to try to force it to happen. Um, maybe alter some things about yourself and the way that you operate in order for this thing to fit into your view, your goal. And that doesn't work out. I don't know many, if any, situations where that ultimately works out. So instead of being so focused on trying to accomplish this goal, or make this situation be what it is, you got to look at the individual in front of you, and you first have to see if that person is a match for what it is you want. If they're not a match, then as much as you want it to fit and you want it to work, because you might really like somebody, or you might really care for somebody, you might really see somebody as somebody who could be a part of your future, your long term future. If it's not a fit, you got to let it go. And, there's that saying that, if you love it, you let it go. And if it's meant or something like that, it'll come back to you. So in this situation, that's is a perfect example of how you should probably follow that. You know, if you do care that much about that person, then let them go. Let them be, let them have their moment, let them have that space to explore and do what they want to do in their lives and follow their visions, follow their goals. And who knows, y'all might end up back. But when you end up back, you'll end up back more with more clarity, and you'll end up back uh, fitting each other's lifestyles more than in the past. So don't hold on to things so tightly that you're willing to force something, even when it's not a true fit. So that's what I would say about that. Now, it looks like I'm not seeing any questions, so I'm gonna end it like this. Grieving a uh, over a relationship or over a lover who's moved on is it's a natural thing. Like, it's not something that you should try to rush. It's not something that is gonna be easy necessarily. Look at me. Like, this was a situation that was, even though I met her in October, we didn't start, really getting closer until maybe February, March. And then we weren't fully sexually intimate until July. So I would say if we're looking at, when we first, you know, were sexually intimate, well, I'm talking about like intercourse, like we had intercourse together. You're talking about what, 5 months? Um, 5 months. So that's not even that long in terms of, what other people are in. There's people that have been in relationships for years. There are others who've been in relationships for multiple decades. And so getting past is not easy, even for somebody who's been in something or who was in something for 5 months. But there's definitely a light at the end of the tunnel. And I would focus on the positive moments that were built and the positive moments that were experienced during the time when you were with that person. Because at the end of the day, you can focus on whatever you want to focus on. You can focus on the last moments, which maybe were kind of rough. Hopefully they weren't. But if they were, then of course you can focus on that if you want to, but that's not going to help you in your moving past the situation. That's not going to help you in your recovery. What will help you more would be to focus on the best moments that y'all experienced together. And at least you have that to hold on to. Like that actually happened. That's the whole thing about when people have good experiences with each other. Even if you have good and bad experiences with each other, not bad, but some positive and negative experiences with one another, the negative experiences don't erase the positive experiences. The positive experiences still happen. So if you focus on the positive experiences, then at least you can just kind of like reflect on the fact that, hey, those moments were there. And even though those weren't the only moments that were there, those did happen. And those are what I'm going to choose to focus my attention on, because the other moments don't really do much for me in terms of making me feel better. If anything, the other moments bring me maybe more sadness. Maybe the moments of happiness bring you a little bit of sadness, but just remember that they happen. And even though you won't have them anymore with this person, you had them with this person. And that's something. It's not everything, it's not what we want. At the end of the day, we want to keep something good going, right? But sometimes, if it's not a fit, then you have to let it go. But you still have the moments that happen, and you can always reflect and always go back to that. And hopefully that can bring you some level of joy, some level of laughter, put a smile on your face or something. But that's what I'm going to choose to do for sure. I'm definitely going to focus on the better moments, this past weekend, which we got to spend with each other as well, along with another group, like a bigger group. But we were in Dominican Republic this past weekend. So I'm definitely going to replay moments from the weekend, and other moments as well. And I think that will help me get through what it is I'm trying to get through, which is getting past these strong emotions that we had. So yeah, that's where we're gonna end it today. Thank you again for joining me on episode number 30 of the Sex Mechanic Podcast. Thanks for allowing me to be totally honest and transparent about what it is I'm going through right now. Hopefully that transparency was able to hit somebody, and hopefully, a very positive way, and provide some level of comfort and support for somebody else who might be dealing with some level of loss or some level of separation. All right. So I appreciate you all. I'll talk to you all soon. And we'll go back to Wednesdays after this. I just wanted to test out Fridays and see how it was, but it looks like not many people are available on Fridays, so we'll probably leave it on Wednesdays after all. But yeah, so I'll talk to you all next week. Next Wednesday, I'll catch you over here. All right. Later.